You say you want a deep, healthy relationship, but you haven't missed a gym session in 100 days, and it's been weeks since you asked your partner how they are really doing. You deadlift your pain like it's a personal vendetta. You squat like your life depends on it. But when it comes to emotions or real, raw, intimate connection, you disappear like you never existed. If that hit close, stay with me here, because today we're not talking about discipline. We're talking about the illusion of control. Welcome to the Wolverine Lifestyle Podcast, where personal growth meets deep thought and introspection. I am your host, Dylan Andres, and in this episode, we are going to explore a pattern that nearly destroyed me. And this is a pattern I see destroying relationships every single day. So, let's get into it. The gym was my church, but it was also my hiding place. I started lifting when I was in my early teens, 13, 14 years old. I began this fitness journey on the foundation of hating myself. Many of my friendships felt fake. I felt as if I was always picked last. My crushes would meet the message that I thought they were cute with a scrunched face, following with the response, "Oh, buddy, you're just too much of a brother to me to risk wrecking that relationship." Heard that a lot. Life at home, it was beginning to get chaotic. And it felt as if it was a full foreshadow for the deeper chaos that unfolded a couple of years later. Once I turned 16, my parents were splitting up. I was in a toxic relationship, constantly betrayed, cheated on, and consistently feeling the need to make myself shrink. I was going to school, navigating those high school dynamics, and working full-time hours to help support my family. I felt powerless, invisible, and never enough for anyone, not even myself. So I trained hard. Pain became my prayer. Barbells became my confessional, and the soreness, that was the only feeling I allowed myself to have. I'd hit the gym at lunch to avoid peers from school. I'd skip social events and lie about plans just so I didn't have to deal with people I didn't want to deal with. I'd put in 2-a-days some days, not because I was prepping, but because the second I stopped lifting, the emotions I was avoiding would come rushing in. And once the gym was no longer numbing me, unfortunately to admit, I turned to alcohol. Not that I was drinking all the time. However, I was finding excuses to drink, and there were days that I would drink before class, which ended up resulting in a few workout sessions as well that I probably shouldn't have participated in because I was drunk. And it got worse in my early 20s. Another failed relationship, which was an engagement, a failed business, debt, betrayal from friends. All of this resulted in another deep depression. So I did what I knew how to do. I isolated myself from the world and married the gym. 3 to 4 hour training sessions, odd hours to avoid people, no social life, just me and the iron. On the outside, it looked like discipline, but on the inside, it was, call it emotional anesthesia. Let's be honest and transparent about something. Not every gym rat is a warrior. Some of us are just wounded little boys and little girls dressed in trendy gym clothes with the glitter of sweat. Here's how you know it. You panic when you miss a workout, but feel nothing when you miss a deep moment with your partner. You say, I need to blow off steam, and skip the hard conversation. You feel more connected to your barbell than your partner. You extend your training time to avoid going home. You use soreness as a reason to not engage emotionally or sexually. You're not regulated, and you are just distracted. I used to say, I'm just tired, when what I really meant was, I'm terrified of conflict, of being seen, of being called out on emotional absence. Basically, terrified of being held accountable. I've coached and spoken with men and women, both, who echo these same patterns. Skipping dinner with their partners because they needed to hit arms again, or it was leg day, or feeling anxious if they missed their fasted cardio, but numb when their partner was breaking down in front of them. On Instagram, they're praised for discipline. Hell, I was praised for discipline. But at home, they're emotionally MIA, as was I. So why does the gym feel safer than love? Well, the barbell doesn't change. 100 pounds is always 100 pounds. If I failed, it was on me. The weight never lied, it never judged, and it never cried. But people on the other hand, they're unpredictable. They had needs, emotions, expectations, and I didn't trust myself to meet them. So I pushed weight instead of pushing through vulnerability because I could control the reps and sets, but I couldn't control rejection. In the gym, I was praised. Out there in the real world, I was afraid of disappointing people, of being exposed. So I chose what I could master, my body, while letting my heart and its capacity to feel atrophy. 2017 was the crash that woke me up. I tore my quad slipping on ice at work, full tear. Powerlifting, my identity, my outlets, my safe space was stripped from me. And what was left? A body that couldn't train, a mind that spiraled, and a heart full of feelings I had been avoiding for over a decade. Recovery was brutal, not just physically, but emotionally. It was a very, very long 9 months. I remember nights I couldn't sleep because I wasn't sore from training. I wasn't depleted. I was just there, stuck with myself, and I hated what came up. The anger, the abandonment, the deep ache of never feeling like I was enough unless I was performing. It was during this time that I realized all the gains in the world couldn't fill the emotional deficit I'd been carrying. All those years of grinding in the gym never actually healed me. They helped me cope, but they didn't help me connect. The shift that changed everything happened slowly. It started with letting myself feel. It started with realizing that no emotion would or could kill me, and that I didn't have to fear sadness, grief, or entertain thoughts that I wasn't enough. And when I stopped judging my emotions, I stopped judging my worth. I started journaling. I started talking to a life coach. I began regulating my nervous system. Meditation, breath work, cold exposure. The kinds of things that didn't give me abs, but gave me access to my own truth. And suddenly, I didn't go to the gym out of guilt. I stopped bullying myself for eating off plan. I stopped valuing my worth based on my PRs. And something beautiful happened. I cultivated the capacity to connect again, to have deeper conversations, to show up in intimacy, to want to be at home. I looked forward to date nights. I laughed deeper with my friends. I stopped needing the gym to feel okay. And as strange as this sounds, my gym results actually got better because I wasn't training from fear anymore. I was training from freedom. This part right here is for the men, and this is what I wish more men knew. Most men, we aren't training for strength. We're training for control because we feel powerless everywhere else. We've romanticized this idea of beast mode, game on all the time with no days off, this grit mental toughness always. But here's the truth. If the only time we feel safe, confident, or valuable is when we're lifting weights, dieting, or following a perfect routine, we're not strong. We're surviving. Sometimes the gym isn't passion. It's just a coping mechanism that society rewards. I know it feels like you're doing everything right. But if your six-pack is covering up a shutdown nervous system and a scared inner child, that's not discipline. That's simply avoidance dressed in sweat. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But it's time we stop calling that strength. This part's for the women. I understand how confusing it is to be with a man who shows up for everything except your heart. He's present at the gym, committed to his goals, structured, reliable, respected, and yet emotionally absent when you need him most. So you start wondering, is it me? Am I asking too much? Why does it feel like the gym gets the best of him and I only get what's left over? Let me be clear. It's not because you're too much. It's because somewhere in his body, love doesn't feel safe. Because vulnerability is harder than lifting heavy. Emotional intimacy isn't something he was taught to build. It's something he was taught to fear. So he trains harder because he feels helpless in the places that truly matter. He escapes to the gym because it's the only place where success is measured in numbers, not in nuance. But that doesn't mean you should carry the emotional labor alone. That doesn't mean you should shrink your needs to fit his avoidance. You deserve a love that lifts with you, one that doesn't disappear during conflict, one that doesn't get quieter every time you ask for connection. So if you're watching your partner retreat into discipline and you feel more alone than supported, you're not crazy. You're just seeing clearly. There is strength in loving someone through their healing. But there's also strength in knowing when their healing is not your responsibility. Let that be your reminder today. Gentlemen, we can still train. We can still chase performance. But don't confuse distraction for healing. We must build strength that isn't just seen in the mirror. Strength that shows up in our relationships. Yeah. In our communication. Yeah. In our presence. Yeah. because that's the kind of strong the world actually needs. As always, thank you for joining me on this episode. If this episode hit home, share it with a brother or a sister who needs to hear this today. And if you're ready to start building emotional muscle too, download the free daily self-trust check-in. It's linked in the show notes, and it's one small step, but it is a real one. Until next time, remember, lifting heavy is impressive, but lifting your emotional armor, that is power.